Hi, this is Matthew 7:16 from the commentary. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes or thorns, or figs of thistles? The phrase, "you shall know them by their fruits," is meant to express that the appearance and claims of these false prophets are no proof of their true character. Claims and prophecies abound which have no validity and, in fact, do not come to pass. The question, "Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles?" does not ask the question, "Do thorns produce grapes, etc.?" Because men automatically knew that such does not produce grapes or figs. So he is telling his followers to use the same common sense in spiritual matters which they show in matters of everyday life. What a blessing it would be if all Christians did this. I am amazed at some Christian businessmen who would go to meticulous lengths, to check the validity of claims made by certain products, etc. And yet those same businessmen at times will accept the wild, extravagant claims of some preachers without checking into it. Jesus is saying that they should use as much sense with the one as with the other. Years ago, a businessman who in fact gave large sums of money to the work of God came to me speaking of a particular preacher who he was planning to sponsor, which involved quite a sum of money. I was not acquainted with the preacher, but strongly urged him to check the matter out. I said to him, sadly and regrettably, many of the claims made by many preachers simply will not hold water. In other words, it is not true. He went on to tell me how he certainly believed that what this man said, even though he had no proof of what was being said. About 3 months later, he came to me, very distraught, I might add. He said, "I had occasion to visit the place where my money was supposed to be spent building a certain project, and in fact, there was no project there, and nothing being planned." He then said, "I threw my money away." Yes, he did, which meant that it could have been used for a legitimate work of God, but instead was not only wasted, but supported a false prophet. Sometime back, one of our supporters, and a man I might quickly add, who had given strongly to our work in ministry, spoke of going overseas and seeing firsthand the work of our child care ministry in Africa. I strongly encouraged him to do so, which he did. When he came back after having stayed for nearly 2 weeks, he said, "Brother Swaggart, if you could get all your supporters to see this work and exactly how much good it's doing, you wouldn't have to plead for funds any longer." He has been back several times since. What kind of fruit is Jesus speaking of? 1. The true gospel of Jesus Christ will always be the foundation of good fruit. Of course, every preacher claims to be preaching the true gospel, when in fact many aren't. However, and irrespective of the good intentions, if the gospel is not being proclaimed as it should be, whatever else is being done will be inconsequential as well. 2. The fruit will be souls saved, believers baptized in the Holy Spirit, and sick bodies healed, with lives being changed, developing righteousness. 1 Timothy 6:11. Regrettably, wild, extravagant claims are made all the time of great numbers being saved, etc. However, some of these claims are spurious, with very precious few of these people being found. Once again, claims are one thing, while the actual fruit is something else altogether. Before anything is supported, it ought to be checked into, and diligently. In the last few years, such claims of healings and miracles have been bandied about as if commonplace. In fact, Some few are true, and for that we are thankful. However, most, and sadly, are spurious. Some time back I had the occasion to visit briefly with a man about this very subject. I did not at all agree with his hypothesis, but still, I could not deny his findings. Claiming to be of sincere heart, in which I hope he was, and regarding a particular evangelist, he said he checked out several of the proposed outstanding healings. He said to me, Brother Swaggart, I sincerely wanted to find out that what was genuine, but there was no way that anyone could conclude, at least honestly, that anything of a physical nature had changed in these particular people. The truth is, the Lord still heals the sick and performs miracles. He answers prayer and still does great and mighty things. However, these false claims in no way glorify God, because nowhere in the Bible does one find God placing a premium on dishonesty. Regrettably, it seems that it seems that the much money in Christian giving goes more so to wild, extravagant claims than to the actual fruit. This proclaims that many Christians are not truthfully heeding the admonitions of Christ, and if in fact they know them at all. Some time ago I wrote on this very subject in our publication called The Evangelist. A brother wrote me back, somewhat disturbed with my article, asking me why I did not call names. I answered him by saying that if he was to notice, Jesus did not call names either. He taught in this manner because he wanted his followers to learn how to detect the false prophets, rather than naming the individual. That person is a false prophet is one thing, while being able to know why they are is something else altogether. 3. The true gospel will produce righteousness in the life of the believer. Peter said, as obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance, but as he which hath called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. 1 Peter 1:14 and 15.